Okay, we are back with another Diablo 4 video. Been a little bit since I made one of these, but I just wanted to come on here and give my opinion about Season 2 and the direction I think Diablo is headed. I know Season 3 starts probably by the time this video goes out, maybe 12 hours, but I just wanted to, come on here and give my overall opinion. And I'll be using the Season 2 roadmap that came out at BlizzCon to kind of just go through some of the points that are listed on here and kind of give my opinion on all of them. Alright, now starting off right at the top, Season of Blood. It was a pretty good season, I'd say. Definitely better than Season 1. Less annoying, I'd say. Mulligan Hearts didn't take up all the space in your inventory. The vampiric powers were kind of cool. Actually had a game-changing effect. Not to say that Malignant Hearts didn't, but, they weren't anything crazy. The leveling system was kind of fun, gave some progression in there, whereas Million Hearts, you just kind of, farm for them, and when you got them, that was it. So, definitely a better season overall, and I did like some of the additions. I also thought the overworld event was a lot better than the Malignant Tunnels. You ran around that area, fought monsters to level up the board. You did little events within the area, one of which was activating all these pedestals, which would cause a bunch of enemies to spawn, and then you'd kind of get like a loot explosion at the end, which was really satisfying. So I think that was also a lot better. Now, one big change they made was adding the ability to target farm uniques through various Uber bosses who had their own loot pools. Now, these bosses were a really cool idea. I think they're actually implemented pretty well. My only issue with them was the fact that all players received unique drops when only one person put in the summoning materials. And for most people, this wasn't really an issue. It just kind of felt bad when you were grinding up all those materials and then maybe you only went in the boss fight with one or two other people, and then you just kind of felt like you were missing out on a lot of uniques because you had a fourth person. It'd be so much more, efficient. And this affected me because, for the most part through season two, I only really played with one, two other people, and a lot of that boiled down to the fact that, that update going to season one was so bad that like a lot of my friends just like stopped playing. I think I was in a guild with maybe like 18 people, so like nothing crazy, but at any given time it was only like one or two of us in. So it was a little frustrating that like, they're forcing such group play. And I don't mind that, but there's no, you know, matchmaking system or any good way to pair up with people to, use these resources besides going through like trade chats. And it seems weird that like a game that focuses on so much like solo self-found and oh you can't trade would turn around and be like, oh well, now you need a group of four to really get the most out of these bosses. So it makes me wonder like why not, let us trade at that point. So it seems like there's a little bit of a disconnect there. I would say that's my really only big problem with it. The rest of the bosses, farming the materials was really something you could do on your own. It was just once you got to Uber Duriel, where it's really like to min max, like you needed a group of four with like a lot of materials, and it took a lot of time. But in terms of being able to get that piece of gear you want and get it fairly reliably, I thought that was a great addition, and I do like the direction they headed with that. Now these next couple, the faster experience was huge. It was way too slow going into the season. It just took forever to get to 100. So when they added that, it was huge. You could get to level 100 fairly quickly. It wasn't this insane feat that would take you days on days. So that was a great change. I thought that was amazing. The increased item power level, was okay, and they, redid how you get all the item power. That I didn't like because for some reason, you know, the world bosses would give you perfect rolls, which was very strange, but gave you some incentive to do the world bosses, I guess. But outside of that, it'd be really hard to get 925 gear. It was not easy at all. You even running like tier 100 nightmare dungeons wouldn't like guarantee it. So that was kind of annoying, and it kind of made it less rewarding to do other activities. Next, we'll talk about the two mid-season patches that came out during season 2. The one being the class-specific malignant rings, and I thought that was a good idea. The rings were pretty strong, relevant for some builds, which is, I guess, all you can ask for when you're adding gear mid-season. So that was definitely a good update, and I enjoyed using those rings, and the fact that it kind of changed up the meta just a little bit. Nothing too crazy, but you maybe cycled it out for a different aspect that you were using at the time. The other one added the enchanting preview window and the abattoir Azir. Now the enchanting preview window obviously helpful, nothing too crazy there, but the abattoir Azir, I wouldn't say I was a huge fan of it. I think it was difficult in a way that wasn't super fun. And this is mainly because, Diablo is a game where you get one shot a lot, When you're trying to make a meta build, you're really strong, the enemies are really strong, you guys are just basically one shotting each other. So, only having one life and then getting one shot randomly wasn't really super fun. And it was kind of frustrating because no matter how far you came, it's still just kind of, you were done. If you died at like 99%, it was over. And, it might be like, oh, just go back into it. Oh, but, it costs so much dust. So if you lost one of those, it was not easy to get that dust back. So I definitely wasn't a huge fan of it. I played it a little bit, but there was also, all that other stuff with the glyph that came out with it taking forever to level up, and that just kind of seemed way too grindy as well. So I didn't do too much of it. I don't think it was a huge, win on Blizzard's part, but I respect them for trying something new, adding a new endgame thing. Um, but I don't expect to see it back around again. Okay, now let's touch a little bit on the Midwinter Blight. This was their holiday event, and I also don't think this was very good. It took way too long to get all the cosmetics. I ended up just putting YouTube on in the background and just zoning out while grinding for them, and it just took me like way longer than you'd think it should. And the other thing that was super annoying is even after I got all these cosmetics, I had to make a new character for every single one of the trophies because it wouldn't let me redeem it on my one class. So that was like also just a super big inconvenience, and I guess they built it, going on the impression that you wouldn't get all of the cosmetics, but I think that's dumb. Why not, let people go through it and get everything? But yeah, it was awful grinding. On top of that, because you're just fighting overworld monsters, you're not getting any gear. I must have gone through so many pieces of gear and didn't get anything worth using out of that. So I also don't think this is that great. Again, I enjoy adding something in for us to play, but I feel like it could have been a little bit less grindy. And if somebody finished it in like 6 hours, I really don't think that's a problem. So again, I like to see it happening. I like to see these little events, but I don't think this one was too great either. All right, and lastly, let's talk about season 3. We now know that this is called Season of the Construct, and they're adding leaderboards, the Gauntlet, and Hall of the Ancients. So in terms of the Gauntlet, I think it's pretty cool. It's something that was kind of in Diablo 3 with the weekly challenge rifts. It's something that I think will be cool to bring back. And because of this, I kind of thought the season would be a little bit smaller because they're adding all this stuff up front. But it seems like it'll be pretty decent. They're adding this companion and new dungeons with traps. So it does seem pretty interesting. Looking forward to seeing if they actually improve upon season 2. Now, one thing I kind of would like to see out of this season is, the little companion actually doing some damage. I know that almost all the time in these games when they add something that's like a companion that you level up, it almost always is going to be one of those things where it's like, all right, it's just support, right? You're going to have some defensive abilities on it, some buffs. The companion's just going to be there to help you. Now, I'd like to be able to, see it do some damage. Actually, in like an end game like meta build would be kind of cool. We'll see if that happens. I'm not sure, and I don't even know if people would really like that. I mean, I know I wouldn't blame people for saying, they want to be strong, not the companion, but I'd be open to actually having my companion do some damage. In closing, I think the only other thing I'm looking for out of season three is for these mid-season events to be a little bit less grindy. I think it's okay if they only take, a day or two to complete. But I guess we'll see if they add any in season three, and we'll see what direction they head.